Welcome back. Obviously, John's dressed up for this video. So, John reminded me of this little incident that happened a few years ago. And it shows just how angry John makes the universe sometimes. I had finished watching a documentary before I picked it up because we were going somewhere.
Probably shoot one of these videos, actually. Because I'm pretty sure we were heading over to Kids & Co.
Okay, sure. That makes sense. I just picked John up. And we were driving. I was driving. And I asked John a simple question. And his answer angered the universe. Hey, John. I was just watching a documentary on Hunter S. Thompson. What was your reply?
No. It wasn't about Hunter S. Thompson, because I know who Hunter S. Thompson is. No, because it was about rock music. Nope. Because you were listening to a song, and you were like, "This is really good." Now, and I asked you, I was like, "Who's this?" And the reason it wasn't Hunter S. Thompson is because I was in a show where I had to mention Hunter S. Thompson, and I actually have a biography like that thick about Hunter S. Thompson, given to me by Kevin.
Okay, but I distinctly remember asking you if you knew who Hunter S. Thompson was.
I'm pretty sure.
And you said no.
Well, actually,
and that's when
clearly I said, "Who's that?"
Okay, there we go. He finally admitted it.
But it wasn't Hunter S. Thompson, I'm sure.
It was Johnny Depp's character from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Hunter S. Thompson.
Okay, it was probably Hunter S. Thompson.
So I asked John if he knew who Hunter S. Thompson was, and he goes, "Who's that?" The moment he said, "Who's that?" the car crash happened just on the opposite side of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how John sometimes angers the universe.
It was on the other side of the overpass. And the bad part is that
it was a head-on collision.
It was a head-on collision, and just as I was like, "Who's that?" Patrick gives me this dark look, like I just angered the gods. And as the dark look happens, the cars just go boom behind him, and he doesn't even look at the cars. He just goes, "You see what happens?"
That's exactly what I did, because you see what happens when you anger the universe?
That's fair.
You good? You getting it?
Yeah, I'm getting it. My earring on. Me Hardy's. Rock and rollin'. Rock-a-rollovich. Yeah, darling.
I could dig it. Why not?
Why am I dressed up? It's 'cause.
Besides it being the holidays, and we've done theater for so long that why not?
Actually, I once heard a guy in a movie say, everything's better with pirates. I dig it.
Oh yeah?
Huh?
Just like the great Ross Fleming once said, sound effects help.
Wish I had sound effects right now. Wah, wah, wah.
What? You had him for class.
Mm-hmm.
He never said that?
Mm-mm.
Said that in my class.
He said things to me like, "What are you doing?" when I was incorrectly coiling an extension cord. Oh, which reminds me, speaking of coiling, I love the story. I don't care if I've told this story before. I love Heat A. There are people who may not, but I do. One time I was up in the catwalks in the grid above the theater at UTEP, and I'm up there and we're coiling cords up because we're getting ready to take one show out and bring another show in. And as I'm coiling, out of nowhere, Heat A appears behind me. And I mean, like, this close to me. And he goes, good job, Jonathan. Good job. And I was like, crap. Because he scared me because I didn't hear him coming. And which is really weird because up on those catwalks, you should be able to hear him. The catwalks are loud. But he snuck up on me and he's like, good job. And I was like, oh, thanks. And I looked back down for a second. And I looked back up to ask him something. Gone. Nowhere on the catwalk. That's
Hey, man.
some scary stuff, man.
Tech people are ninjas.
Not Ross. I could always hear him coming. Just hear that clinking of that ice in his Yeti. And I'd known I'd done something wrong.
Fair enough.
Patches in my way. I'll keep the earring.
So, today's topic. I've worked in theaters around El Paso. The ones at UTEP, the Abraham Chavez, the Plaza, El Paso Playhouse, Kids and Company, and some high schools. And there's one thing that doing theater you will experience sooner or later, eventually. And some of this stuff you experienced with me when we were at Kids and Co. Everybody's welcome to argue it with me. That's fine. I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced. We're talking about hauntings. I've been doing it for let's backtrack. I did it for 18, almost 20 years. But I just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. It started to affect my health. I was stressed a lot of the times. A couple of shows almost gave me my first heart attack. I shouldn't say my first because I haven't had a heart attack yet, but I've come close to having two. One show did put me in the hospital, which I've talked about before. I haven't performed a full show in 6 years. In 2014 was the last time I performed in a full show. Besides small, less than one act shows here and there, I haven't done a full show. I haven't done tech for a show in about the same amount of time. No, I take that back. It's been about 3 years since I've done tech for a full show. Except for when we were talking in the previous video about how I was working Share, Kiss, and Cirque du Soleil Ovo before the global pandemic hit. I got to the point where it was affecting my health really bad, and I just couldn't do it anymore, you know. And people ask, there's times, obviously not recently, but there were times where people would ask if I could do this for them, if I was interested in being in this show, if I was interested in being in that show, and I would graciously say no, I wasn't interested in it, and I'm okay with it. There are a few people who want me to do at least one more show. My answer is no, at least not right now. If there is something that comes along in the future, maybe, but right now I can't do it. And I'm okay with it. I know when I say I haven't done a full show in 6 years, people think that's a short amount of time. But in theater, it might as well be 15 years. It's very different in theater-wise. I haven't performed in 6 years. Might as well be a decade or so.
I mean, theater's like that, you know. Like sometimes you just gotta take breaks. You get burned out, or like you always getting injured because you're working a lot.
Yep. Oh. Because John was kind enough to bring up how I get injured a lot I was working in El Paso 2016. It was the 2016 summer of Vivo El Paso. And then I think we were striking one night. And I bent down to pick up one of the subwoofers. And I hit my knee like head on directly onto something. It was either on the subwoofer itself, on the concrete. I don't really remember. But what I do remember is the massive purple bruise on my knee, and the fact I didn't crack the top of my knee is amazing. But instead of taking time off, or you can't really take time off, I just walked with a severe limp for a few days. But yeah, like, and then I come to find out, and I'm not mentioning any names, I stopped doing theater because of certain, just the way people get treated sometimes. From directors, other cast members. I hate to use the word abuse, but times are changing. I understand that. But when I started theater, like, it was very. In some places, it can be a toxic environment. I would put it that way. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. Theater is a place where people from all backgrounds, and when I mean all backgrounds come together and put on something that people can forget about their problems for, whether it be 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on the show that you're doing. And I saw a lot of it, I experienced a lot of it, and I was just, I can't do this anymore. It got to the point where I was so stressed out and I was getting sick, and few people knew that I was getting sick, and it was changing my attitude, because I would go to sleep, but I would wake up and I would have so many messages on, hey, can you do this? When can you do that? We're thinking about doing this. And I wasn't receiving the help that I would have liked to have had, I guess. So I couldn't do it anymore, and I bowed out. I can't, I'm burned out.
No, earlier you said that you didn't want to use the word, but I think abuse is like the perfect term for it. I mean, sometimes, without mentioning names, there are some people in the community that they're not people friendly, which is weird. I mean, because that's technically what theater should be about, being people friendly. But they ride you, and not like in a good way, not like in you're trying to get this project done kind of way, but they just want to insert their dominance or whatever over you, and so it makes it can make the show toxic.
It can make the experience very poor for some people. There are a few people that I really enjoyed working with. I had great chemistry with when I was free, but then there's also those same shows where there's people I did get along with, and there's other people where I couldn't stand, and I just could. Well, you're still doing it. I bowed out years ago, so.
Well, I mean, especially now, there's been a lot of like downtime. There's a lot of.
I feel like that's an oversimplification.
But I mean, like, there's been a lot of space between, which I guess is what's really been helping me. And there's been a lot of environments that aren't as toxic. So, actually, I just did something. The 17th. I'm gonna be on the Chamizal website in probably February. That's what they were saying, something like that.
When you say the 17th, are you talking about December?
Yeah, just recently. We did a video about the original 1911, I guess, I don't want to call it like a tribunal, but like basically like the 3 different governments, Canada, America, and Mexico, came together to try and solve the dispute about the land that is the Chamizal, and because of the river, and it had moved. And so America wanted it, and then Mexico wanted it, and there was like, did it move fast? Did it move slow? The agreement was like somebody would get it or whatever. So, for more information, go to the website of the Chamizo in February, somewhere around there. But yeah, then Canada was the mediator, and I got to play Canada. But we did it kind of like comical, because it's meant for kids. It's kind of like giving them history, but not like in a boring, like adult kind of a setting where it's just history. It's make it fun for them.
So it's a mix.
Yeah, and it's a silent film, so we could say whatever we wanted to. Well, within reason, because there are people that can actually read lips and stuff. But we could say like pretty close to what we were supposed to be saying. You know, the general idea, and then they're gonna put like place cards of words that they want, and that'll be more like diplomatic and everything. It was fun though.
That's cool.
It's not. It's like it was all filmed.
You know what? Now that you bring that up, and from what our topic was going to be / is going to be, I did work at the Chamisao for a little bit, and I think the Chamisao is one of the very few places where I feel comfortable, where I don't get that sickening feeling where I feel like I'm being watched. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because there's been times where I just... Well, okay. When I was working at Kids and Co. Excuse me. You would help me, and we would stay late. But walking through the corridors that we had to get through, and we would turn off the lights, it takes a lot for me to get uncomfortable. But walking through everything that we would have to get through just to get through the front door to leave, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt like something was always watching me, and I felt like something didn't want me there. And I would record some of the videos just to show some friends who don't live in El Paso how far I would have to get to the front door in different areas, down hallways, and how dark it would get and how quiet and spooky it was. And some of my friends are sensitive to this type of stuff, and even them, they would tell me, dude, you need to play that video back because there's something there that does not like you and you need to go.
It got a lot worse, the fact that we had to turn off the lights, which is like a big thing when it comes to hauntings and things. Like, the darker it gets, it just feels like whatever, like the presence tends to be more alive when it gets darker. That was crazy. We had to turn the lights off like in several different portions of that building, and then walk through the darkness in like pitch blackness to get out.
You know, you do have a nickname.
I have a lot of nicknames.
No, but there's one specific that you have had. It's Fancy Pants.
Fancy Pants. What show was that for that I earned that? Because I remember it was probably had to do with the fact that I had, like, over flamboyant pants, probably.
Well, it just wasn't that. It was a fact that John's helped me out over the years with tech. If you watch some of the previous videos, you'll see that John's just... He helps me out a lot. Jesus Christ, I think I've known you for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's 2010, yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing is that anytime you would help me, and someone actually pointed it out, anytime you would help me do tech, you're wearing fancy shoes, kind of like the ones you're wearing now, and dress pants. And if it wasn't dress pants, it was scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of dress pants. So, fancy pants.
I'm to like the point when I actually had 2 pairs of dress pants that I would wear all the time for tech stuff because they had gotten paint splatters on them.
Yeah, it was probably my fault.
Or mine.
Mm-hmm.
I spray paint everywhere. Can't paint for doo-doo. I paint pretty good. Just not... I don't paint well.
I can trace my hand pretty good. So, So I would get, but the Abraham Showers was one place where I just felt comfortable. It didn't feel as if something malicious was there. I just felt okay. There was a few times I like telling this story because I get goosebumps thinking about it. This happened at the Playhouse many years ago. We were doing All My Sons. If you've been to the Playhouse, you know that the booth is behind the audience, and the stage is over here. All My Sons, it takes place. The majority of it takes place in a backyard. So the way that was set up was it had the backyard with the fence and the hole in it. The part of the house, and on the opposite side, they just had a little window. On the other side of that window, they had a lamp. I controlled my own, just the way the lights would set the time of day. Because it all took place in one day, basically. They would control the lamp from backstage when the time called for it. I never controlled it. I have to emphasize this. I never controlled that lamp. It was not on my board. It was not any of my cues. They did it themselves. So one day, it was a matinee. I come in and I get there early. I just to check my cues. It's something I've always done. It was something that was taught to me. You show up an hour early before the actors, and you go over everything to make sure that everything's working correctly. Just so if something's wrong, you have time to fix it. So I get there and I have 3 cues. Morning, afternoon, and night. I go up into the booth, I turn everything on. I check my cues. My first cue, I bring the lights all the way up. At the corner of my eye, that lamp goes all the way on. Bright, 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 bright. It matches my cue. And I thought that was really odd. Even just thinking about it now, the hairs on the back of my neck are sticking up. So I thought it was a little strange, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see. I bring the lights down. I bring up my second cue. It's about midday, the sun's setting. Bring it up. That lamp, again, matches the brightness of my cue. And I was just, what? What's going on? I was a little confused. So I brought my cue down. I bring it up again. That lamp matched my cue again. And mind you, it's Act 3 and it's not so bright. It's like the majority of the light's coming from the moon. But that lamp matched it. It was dim. And I was a little weirded out by it. So I was just, let me go check. Maybe wires got crossed. And it just happens to be, I was just thinking anything logically. I go down the ladder. I'm alone. I walk through the lobby, the concession area. I go backstage. The lamp was unplugged the entire time.
Nope.
The lamp and I have no explanation for it because for that show I never went backstage because I had no reason to. I had no reason to. They were controlling the lamp. Everything else was working. That was my first time going backstage for that particular show. I went back there. That lamp was unplugged. And it matched all my cues. It made no sense. So it was just one of those things where I had no explanation. I knew who it was, and then I wish I could say that was the last time I experienced something, but obviously it wasn't.
I've actually had two haunting events. I actually want one. I want to be able to I've had like some of the the usual stuff, like you go into an area and you can feel something, but I've only actually ever seen something twice. And one of them was actually at the Playhouse. Because I was on stage and I looked up and Patrick's giving you the layout of where the light booth is. Well, if you go across the wall from the light booth is on the other side, that's where the spotlight is. And it's a completely separate booth of its own. You could get across from one booth to the other, but you'd probably fall through the roof. But I was on stage and I looked up, and I saw a little girl by the spotlight. I don't go up there a lot. Not after that.
I don't go up. When I was there as often as I was, I never went up into the spotlight booth except for a handful of times. And even then, I just didn't like that feeling. It was a heavy feeling, and I didn't like it.
And somebody broke the ceiling in that spotlight area. I forget who it was.
There's a... I don't even know which one to go to, because there's so many that I experienced. We could even... There's the Lavender Lady at UTEP, the clapping / whistling man. Now this one, I wasn't the only one who experienced this. There was a handful of us there. I was at home and there was a show going on at UTEP. And someone texted me and they were just, hey, something's really weird in the shop. Can you come by and see what's going on? And they said that there was weird smells also. I said, sure. So I drove down there and I went. And I got normal. I walked into the shop and the lights were off except for maybe one work light. It felt weird. It doesn't often feel weird, but that day it felt weird. And I was like, you're right, it doesn't feel right in here. I was facing inside the shop. And I had people behind me. The moment I turned to walk out, I heard... And it was right behind me. It was a foot behind me. And I was like, don't turn around. Don't turn around. We need to go. There's been a lot... I don't know if you've heard the same stories I did. I know we were there. You got there when I was in the midst of there, but also getting ready to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that the Lavender Lady protects and warns the students. And it's the whistling / clapping man you have to watch out for.
No, I don't think I'd ever heard about the whistling clapping man. I don't think I did hear about the Lavender Lake. That was like the one.
Well, it was always one of those one for the. He does one. It might be the same person. I can't say person. I should say entity. But he does one of the two, either claps or whistles. But there's a strong, heavy smoke smell when he's around. At least that's what from my understanding, and I've experienced some strange things when I was there, especially when you would take a walk from our side to where everybody would make the clay figures and everything. Mm-hmm. That hallway itself is just, I got a really bad feeling there, and I was there late sometimes, and of course, me being the person I am, I was like, well, let's mosey on over there, see what's going on, and then all of a sudden, we're by ourselves, but we could hear music playing, and someone shuffling their feet, and it was time to get out of there. Good times.
So my only other haunting story is not from the theater, but it's the first one I ever had. This is actually way before I ever heard the story of La Llorona.
Wow, you said that correctly.
I try.
That ought to roll right off your tongue.
Before I heard that story, I was at an apartment on Dyer. I'm gonna keep it very vague, so you think it's your apartment if you're living on Dyer, on the northeast. And one time I was in bed trying to get to sleep, and my bed sits up against two different walls by a window, and I'm laying in bed, and I rolled one way and I was facing the door, so I'm like looking at the door, and then I got uncomfortable, so I flipped around the other way to face the wall. And when I flipped around the other way, I looked down in the crack between the bed and the wall, and there was a woman's face in the crack staring up at me.
That's weird.
And like that's like the first time that I've ever seen something like really like clear. Like the face was literally like.
Nope, that's weird. No, I've been experiencing stuff since I was a kid, and even before then. But for that story, my first grade teacher told us that story. Because that's the times we grew up in. Well, I grew up in apparently, because my first grade, second grade teacher just, story time, and she read us that one. Clearly, I'm from a different time.
The only ones I heard were the Highwaymen and the joke ones that they tell you like bloody fingers, that kind of stuff.
No, she told us that one. So I didn't watch the movie because I knew that story and I knew the movie was going to be bad. And apparently, from what everybody told me, it was bad.
Like, I mean, it's an okay, like, if you're going for like a horror movie or whatever, and it kind of fits with the Conjuring and everything.
Yeah, it's made by the same producers.
So like it fits within like the world, but if you're going there for like the real story of like I don't know, no, it's off.
Right. El Paso High is another place that is notoriously haunted. Like, I was there. Well, I mean, I used to judge speech and debate there. They had one next there when I was in high school, so we would go. And obviously, it's one of the first. It's the first high school that was built in El Paso. And then you had UTEP, Boston, and everything else following.
Is that the one that kind of looks like an actual mental asylum, and they did that show there at the Shakespeare's Asylum show? Is that it?
You've never been to El Paso High School?
I don't know. I don't think so. I went to Parkland. Why do I go to other people's high schools?
El Paso High is made out of marble, you know that, right?
That wasn't that one.
Oh,
the one I went to was made out of stone and brick. It actually looked like an abandoned mental asylum.
Gotcha. Well, I was at El Paso High, and their bathrooms are really nice. They have a sink. They have sinks in the restrooms. They have sinks here. There's a divider, and there's sinks on the other side. It's almost like a table island. Mm-hmm. But it's for sinks. It just sits. There's a wall that divides sinks and sinks. I was washing my hands. So I'm here, sinks, door. I hear the door open. And I hear the water start running. I don't hear footsteps, but I hear water running. I go around. Well, I turned mine off and everything, and I dry my hands. And the moment I do that, that water shuts off. But I don't hear a door. I go, and I'm getting chills now just thinking about it. And as soon as I peek my head, nothing. Absolutely nothing. A couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, I got to tour the tunnels down at El Paso High. And that was something else. It was really neat, the history. It was really cool. There's stories of what the tunnels were used for, how long they go. You know, so it depends on who you want to believe or what stories you want to believe and what the tunnels were used for, but these tunnels were have been there for a very long time. So El Paso High sits, there's tunnels underneath the main school, and then there's tunnels underneath those tunnels. and it's the tunnels that are underneath that are closed off that were just used for, what can I say?
Punching bad kids?
No. I don't know how to phrase it. I mean, El Paso High is old, and those tunnels were used to travel to places and to get away from bad things. And certain famous people also use those tunnels to get from here. It just depends on, whose stories you want to believe. But that's, yeah. The stories that other people have shared were I don't want to say worse than my experiences, but their experiences trump mine. I could put it that way. Because although I can't say anything because I have experienced some there was one time, here's a good example. I was at the El Paso Playhouse. Auditions just finished for a show. There was 3 of us left in the building, and we were at the concessions area. Okay, so the 3 of us are casting a show, and all of a sudden, you know how when wind rustles paper, it's a very distinct sound?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we heard that, but we're the only 3 left in the building. And we go around to see if we had a late person show up for auditions. We went around, nobody. The front door was open, the office door was open. So I went to the office. I closed it. Another individual went to the front of the playhouse and shut those doors. This is where everything just goes downhill. So it's the office door, then the doorway to the auditorium. As I turn, I'm getting ready to walk back to where everybody was. But I had something compelled me, I don't know what you want to call it, but something just, you need to look into the auditorium right now. The moment I turned and I looked, I just saw something just right across the stage. There wasn't a bound to it. There wasn't noise. I know what I saw. There was no noise. It just right across that stage. And there was no noise. So mind you, this was in seconds. Just a few seconds for them to, if it was a person, for them to go down that aisle, go up those stairs, which are hollow, so it makes a bunch of noise, going across that stage, which also makes a bunch of noise, to the woodshop. I know what I saw, and it just right across that stage. And I knew that was it. Whatever it was, it didn't want us there anymore. Our time was up. At the same time, another individual was at the other entrance of the auditorium, and they saw the same thing I did. And we're done. We need to leave right now. The moment we turned off everything, we walked out the side door, then we come back around to the front, because the front of the playhouse is nothing but glass. I could feel the tension between glass, me outside, and the inside of the playhouse. I could feel the tension just rise. And I knew, that's it, we're done for the day. We needed to go. So we left. But it was so, in mere seconds, the atmosphere just changed. And it became hostile, and we needed to get out of there. And I was just, it was something else. It was something else.
You know, I guess one of the last stories I'll tell. I mean, it's scary, but for me, and it's not really like a haunting story, but I think it falls into like the purview of it because it takes place in the Playhouse, which is a haunted building. Is that I actually so like I used to be the guy who worked in the office.
Office administrator.
Office administrator. And my workday was done. We had a show that night, so I had like a number of hours before we actually had to start getting ready. So I was like, okay, didn't sleep a lot. I didn't really get a lot of sleep last night. I'm really tired. Just had a long day. I'm gonna go to sleep for a couple hours before we have to open up the box office and everything. So I closed the door to the office and I turned off the lights.
Okay.
And I went and I laid down, and there's like a Shea lounge that used to be inside the office. It was from one of the shows, and they stored it in there and never used it again. It was laying there, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna lay on this, put some pillows in a blanket, laid on it, went to sleep. Don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up, and I don't mean actually woke up. I mean sleep paralysis. Woke up.
Gotcha.
Laying on my stomach, side of my face, looking out. All I can see is the light pouring into the bottom of the door. The rest of the office is black, and I could like feel something, you know, like something was in the room with me. And if you don't know, if you haven't had it before, sleep paralysis, from the name, you can't move anything. Your brain is awake, but your body won't move. That part of the brain isn't awake to move your body, so you can't move. So like imagine feeling something getting closer to you from the shadows and getting closer to you, and you cannot move. Even as you're freaking out, you can't move. And in your mind, you keep telling yourself, all I gotta do is roll over. If I roll over, I'll wake up. If I roll over, I'll wake up. And, you know, I'll be able to get out of here. So with all my might, with everything that was in like me, I was like, I'm moving, I'm rolling right now. And I woke up. Laying on my back, was not actually on my stomach. And I just woke up, and there was nothing in the room with me.
Wow.
But I don't know, like you were saying, like the tension, like from just being in the building.
This was probably, I've experienced a lot of the chaos, but this one, there's a handful of people who know the story, but I wasn't alone, so, you know, I have someone who was a witness to it. It was my buddy Moy. I've talked to him about him before. We were doing something at the women's club, and he was at work, but he asked me to stop by the playhouse to get some tools that we were going to need. So he gave me his key, and I did. The front doors to the playhouse has a magnetic lock, and it's glass and metal framing. So when you unlock it or lock it, it makes a lot of noise. I went. I knew it was going to be quick, so I just left the door unlocked. I walked in. I walked through the auditorium, up on stage. But the thing is that it felt off, and I didn't know why. But as soon as I walked down to auditorium, walked through the auditorium, up the stairs. I just felt off. So I go. I get the tools that we need. I come back on stage, down the stairs, through the auditorium, come back to the front door. It's locked. I was by myself. That front door was locked. And I was just... I go out the side door, I meet Moy at the women's club. And I told him what just happened. And he goes, yeah, I've experienced stuff like that too, man. Don't worry about it. Then he looks at the tools, and he looks at me, and he says the one thing you never want to hear. We have to go back. But at least I knew this time I was going to be alone. So I said, all right, what could possibly go wrong with someone else being there? So we get there, we go through the front door, and Moy's a big guy. He's a big guy. He walks in and he goes, something doesn't feel right. We go into the auditorium. This time we notice that there's a pink light on. Because one of the shows that was on, one of the flats was tilted at a side, and there was a window in it, and we could see the reflection of a pink light. Made no sense. And we just need to hurry, not think about it, we need to go. We go up on stage, We go into the wood shop, grab the rest of the tools that we need. We come back and we realize that the work light in the booth is on. So we need to go up there and turn it off. This is where it starts to get weird. Like it wasn't weird already. We go up into the booth. The work light is on, but the power's off. In order for that work light to be on, the fuse box down below has to be turned on. And it was off. It made no sense. When we turned off the pink light, we both looked down, and in that window there was a reflection of a figure. And it couldn't be ours because our heads were just sticking out of that window in the booth. But there was a figure, a reflection of a figure in the window. And we're like, we're done. We're right by the door. We go down. Still by ourselves. No one else was around. Nobody outside was even walking around. We go, we lock the door, and we were just, all right, we're done. We're done. And we took off. I don't even think we went back that day. I wish I could say that was the last time, but it's never the last time. I was helping my buddy Jim. Our friend Lexi, myself, were helping Jim out with a show he was doing at Radford School. Have to refer to it. That's what it's called. It's called Radford School because it is an elementary school, middle school, and high school. It's a private school, so they do all the grades. The thing is that we were the only three in the building because it was their winter break. Mm-hmm. The theater and the door we used to go in and out were at the opposite ends of the school, and we were by ourselves. So we finished everything we were doing that day. As we're walking, we get to the main part, which is a square cafeteria of the doors. As we're walking, one of the classroom doors swings open. But it doesn't swing open towards us. It swings into the classroom. The light didn't bleed into the classroom. It was just dark. Neither one of us acknowledged it. We just kept walking. The moment we got to the door, that's when we were just like, we all saw that, right? Yes, we did. We all saw that. We know exactly what happened. That door opened by itself. I left my charger inside the building. And I looked at everybody. Nope. Come back tomorrow and get it. I hope my phone survives. Did not go back that night. I will say this really quick. If you have, I know there's people out there who have different experiences than I have as far as paranormal goes. If you want me to tell your stories and leave you anonymous, you can message me, text me, Instagram. You could DM me, Marshall's Place. I'm on there. The DMs are open, so if you have stories you want to share or certain experiences, feel free. I will gladly tell them. I will leave you anonymous if you want to be anonymous. It's totally cool by me. The only reason I mentioned Jim and Moy is because they know and they don't care. Like the stuff that Moy and myself have experienced sober trumps the stuff we experienced when we've been drinking. There was one time we saw a car get repossessed and we were both sober. I'm not making that up. That's entirely true. That's too stupid to make up. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy this. In the last video I forgot to say Merry Christmas. Christmas is coming up. Do stay safe. Because we all know how the world is right now. So just stay safe, and hopefully this is kind of entertaining and takes you away from the reality of the world for, even if it's just for a little bit.
Have a good 2021.
Yeah, just because it turns 2021 doesn't mean the global pandemic's going to disappear. No, it's going to be season 2.
Is it going already?
Oh, yeah.